The Mr. Yunt franchise is one that's gone through a lot of adversity. Early in their history, they suffered back-to-back championship losses. The first in the closest championship game ever, the second in the biggest blowout.
Going back to back, you think you're going to be there every single year. I mean, how can you not? And I think I was on a run there of the first 4 years making the playoffs 3 times. So I was feeling pretty good about my status in the league. Just wasn't meant to be those next couple of years.
Definitely feel for Patrick on the Stafford one. That's one of the most brutal ways to end a season.
Following these heights, the team went on a 3-season run of missing the playoffs.
The second championship loss really took a mental toll on my team. So you kind of had to just rally the troops a little bit, grind through those couple bad years, and hope to get through it.
Many teams would have folded, but this team wasn't done yet. That year with the 4th overall pick, Mr. Yunt drafted standout wide receiver Ja'Marr Chase.
At the time, it felt like wide receiver was a much bigger need for my team. And to be honest, I thought Ja'Marr was the best player in the draft. Including the quarterbacks, I did think he was the best overall player. And I thought the connection with Joe Burrow would have been pretty special, and as it turns out it was. And I could be wrong. I think the only real quarterback left at that time was Zach Wilson. So big win there. Avoided a huge mess. But at the time, really, I just thought receiver was a bigger need. Looking back at it, quarterback may have been the better, longer play. But at the time, I thought I had a good enough team to compete. So I thought one top receiver would have kind of put me over the top.
To open the season, very few opposing GMs gave him a shot at even making the playoffs. Going into your first season as a GM, did you anticipate Mr. Yunt as a team to worry about?
No. I remember, coming in the league, eyeing teams up and down, and it was clear that I was in bad shape, right? I don't know the gentleman who had the team before me, but it was Dalvin Cook and a bunch of other guys. I remember, obviously the first order of business was to compare my team to others. And right away, Mr. Boydach's team stood out. Obviously, his team was loaded, and actually it was Johnny's team as well, because he had Mahomes and Kamara, and I believe maybe Zeke as well when I first got in the league. So seeing all those names on one team, that was a little intimidating. But no, I did not expect Mr. Yunt's team to be towards the top. Anyone with a Vikings logo, I pretty much just disregard them. They don't win championships. So you could sense my surprise when he was there at the end.
Did you think that going into the regular season that Patrick Dingus was a legitimate contender to win the 2021 Gotham City Batman's championship?
I wouldn't say it. I was able to take a peek at that team at the beginning of the season and even at the end of the season. It's kind of crazy that team was able to pull that off. It makes sense, he has all the players and all the pieces that he would need, but it's no star-studded lineup. I think his starting quarterbacks were Stafford and Matt Ryan. So, those two guys, how you can't really write that team off ever, but you can't make them a Super Bowl contender even.
And I'll be honest, I was a little skeptical. I think at the time we didn't really know what Stafford was going to be in LA. Jameis Winston was a pretty big wild card. He just drafted Ja'Marr Chase. Deebo Samuel was coming off a year where he was very injured, so his team had a bunch of question marks associated with it, and basically he rolled the dice and rolled the Yahtzee. So I mean, I was probably a doubter at the beginning of the year, but after you win so many games, you start to have to think that this guy's a championship contender.
His team, I think, kind of came out of nowhere. Not necessarily. He had some pieces, but when you looked at him, he had finished a lot of the years at the bottom and didn't make a ton of big additions, but through a lot of trades at the deadline and obviously a huge pickup in Ja'Marr Chase in the draft, he kind of got hot at the right time. But the Yunt franchise didn't care what anyone else thought.
I mean, everyone's got to love proving the haters wrong, right? I prefer to keep myself under the underdog title. The less people expect of me, the better I tend to perform, and that's where I kind of like to keep it.
Here's the thing about Patrick. I had Patrick pegged as a potential championship winner ever since he made his official team name. When I saw you named his name as Mr. Yunt, I said this guy could win a championship. because not everyone has the balls to make that kind of name. A legendary, dynamic name after, one of the greatest men in history, some would say. Greatest teacher in history, for sure. So when Patrick did that, named his team after a legend, we all knew he had it somewhere in him deep down to win.
Did you have Patrick on your radar as a contender for 2021?
I don't know, Grogu. What do we think? Did we think Patrick was going to get the job done? No? You don't think so, Grogu? Well, I do, and let me tell you why. I think the start, I didn't. But here's the key. Here's the key that people maybe we're starting to learn in 2021 is that, if you trade with the DCs, good things happen. So would Patrick have won without making trades with the DCs? No, I don't think so, because Matt Ryan was a beast and helped Patrick along the way. Joe Mixon helped lead Patrick to a title. So I think there were other teams in the league that were hesitant, giving up the value necessary. But to Patrick's credit, he made some moves. He got some quality players and traded with a highly regarded team in the DCs, and boom, got a trophy.
I really only traded for Matt Ryan out of necessity, because I believe that's when Jameis went down again. And I remember talking to Scott at the time. It's, I felt like I was overpaying for Matt Ryan, but I thought I owed it to myself and to the rest of the team to just go for it. We'll worry about everything else after the season. So I just told myself, you know what, you're overpaying for an old quarterback, but you're not going to win if you don't have at least 2 quarterbacks. So I told myself just to go for it. And then really the Joe Mixon part of it was just pushing myself over the edge. What could I add to the team that wasn't necessarily a need, but definitely pushed me closer to title contender for sure.
After securing the first round bye, the Mr. Yunton franchise met their first opponent in the semifinals, the Island of Misfit Toys.
You were Patrick's first victim in the playoffs, where you held the lead pretty much from the start. What did that matchup feel like?
It was a weird feeling because it kind of felt like I didn't belong anyway. I probably didn't take it as hard as maybe some others would. I was just so stunned to turn that team around and get them into a spot of playoff contention that I was pretty proud of that. Because my expectations were low to the point to where I was, ready to full-on embrace the tank for a couple of years. Maybe that makes me less of a competitor, and that's fine. But I was just happy to be around.
Did you have yourself pegged as the top team going into the preseason?
Absolutely not. I thought I was a fringe playoff team, and just you never know what happens when you can get in. But no, definitely not a top team. I think anyone who thinks they have a better team than Mr. Boydak year over year is kidding themselves at this point. But my goal was just to get in, make some noise, see what happens.
Having easily dispatched the Island of Misfit Toys, Mr. Yunt found themselves championship bound once again versus the mighty back-to-back champion Mr. Beasts.
Going into that finals matchup, what did you think your odds were of winning that game?
I would have put my odds at 90%. I thought for sure I was going to win that game.
Do you think that's one of the best redemption arcs in the league's history?
It probably is number one. To continue to be good for that long year after year like he was and finally win the big one, it's awesome for him. For sure. It was good to see.
Were you happy for him?
Happy for him? To be honest, no. Because I'm not happy if I'm not the winner.
In 2021, shout out to Patrick. Great season. Mr. Yunt has my respect. 100%.
Put up a ton of points in the championship game in the second round as well. I think he had 160, and then following up with nearly 200. It's hard to beat that. If you're playing at your best, that's all you need. And props to him getting that championship. I think he proved a lot of people wrong and kind of surprised a lot of people.
I think he earned that title, that's for sure.
The killer was Jamar Chase. It's so ridiculous that they let him score so much. And if you look on the scoreboard from that day, the two players straight across from each other are A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase. And A.J. Brown had 7 points and Jamar Chase had 55. And that's where he won it. And, all I can say is good on him.
Do you think we'll ever see a higher scoring fantasy championship?
It's hard to say yes. They both scored in the 190s. I mean, unless we're going to double PPR, it's going to be hard for both teams to have their best week of the season basically in the same week. Both teams were good at the time. The Beasts were on a roll. Mr. Yunt was on a roll. So it just the stars aligned for a high scoring championship. I won't say we'll never see it, but it might be a long time before we see a 190s championship matchup ever again. Good on Mr. Yunt for winning it. It sucks for the Beasts. You have a great week and lose. It's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Do you think we'll ever have a more high-scoring championship game than what we had in 2021?
Oh, man, I feel like even if we added an extra roster spot or two, we might not even get to those numbers. That was incredible to be a spectator of, because you average 150, good teams average in the 160s to 170s throughout the year, and to have the two best teams in the league both have a day on the day of the Super Bowl, I think that's just like the perfect storm. So I think that will not be happening, and a 400-point game might not even happen again, as even in the regular season. But for another Super Bowl like that, I would say no.
If I told you before that game that Mr. Bean is going to put up 190 points, you would have thought that you were going to win?
Not even close, especially with how Matt Ryan had been playing going into that game. When I had him, Matt Ryan had the good first game. He got like 25, 30 points. And then after that, it was rough. He was not doing me many favors. He was getting like 10 points a game, which for a quarterback is tough to do. If you would have told me he would have scored 190 and I still would have won, I would have thought, no way. Like, it had to have been something had to have gone wrong.
It hurts because a lot of big things would have happened for the Beasts. Number one would have been 4 championships, which still would have been one ahead of Ryan, which I hate that he's tied with me. And then number 2, it would have been 3 in a row. And I think you're going to find in this league, as we go through the history of this league, how hard it is to win 2 in a row, let alone win 3 in a row. And I could have had that. It will always be a stinger for sure. Whatever defense that was absolutely a joke, because Jamar Chase had like 2 balls that he caught. It was like 30 yards away from the end zone, and the safety is over there picking his nose. Like, what are you doing? Just letting him just run in for the touchdown. Just go over and tackle the guy. And it was just ridiculous. So yeah, that hurt. Yeah, that Jamar Chase thing and that sorry ass defense was really, really tough to watch.
So the games I get here, I really get Fox games, and I'm pretty sure that was on CBS. So you're just kind of following them along whenever they do the game breaks or whatever, whenever they check in. I remember seeing the first touchdown, thinking that's sweet. Next game break, they show another one. Next game break, they show another one. And I thought it was a replay, and I couldn't believe it. And I really still can't, to be completely honest. Going into that game, I really thought I was the severe underdog, and I really didn't have much of a chance. But Jamar Chase is my father, and I bow down to him.
Part of you is watching it from an NFL real life standpoint, like this guy's amazing. But then suddenly you think of like, who's got him in our league again, and who's like racking up all these points? And yeah, then it gets a little bit tough for his opponent.
Because I know in that championship game, Matt Stafford also had a fumble, but this time he comes out on top. So, big deal there.
That'd have been devastating if he lost because of a fumble by Matt Stafford.
I think it would have been tough, but I think we all would have laughed except for Patrick. I think Patrick might have cut Stafford on the spot that year if that happened.
I think the fantasy gods kind of lifted a huge burden off my shoulders.
We were talking about Stafford wins the Dynasty Championship here and also wins the NFL Super Bowl for the first time. Which achievement of between the two would you say is the more prestigious one?
The trophy that we play for every year is definitely the most prestigious award that you can ever achieve in anything football related. So I think that makes sense.
I guess it would depend on who you ask. If you're asking Patrick Dingus, probably the victory for the Mr. Yunt team, but ask most anybody else. I think Stafford, after all those crappy years in Detroit, finally winning a championship and being on top was a pretty good way to cap a season and kind of cap a career.
I think he would say out loud the Super Bowl, just to save face. You got to say winning it for the Rams. You got to say it. But I think deep down in here, he knows it's Gotham City Batmans. I mean, this league is prestigious at this point. It's well known. So I think he would say Super Bowl, but he knows it's Gotham City all the way.